The music pulsed softly behind her as Lana stepped into the private lounge on the top floor of the Meridian Hotel. Everything felt wrong. The lights were too soft, the perfume in the air too expensive, and the heels on her feet didn't belong to her. She wore a black dress her sister insisted she borrow, tight at the waist and far more glamorous than Lana ever dared to wear on her own. She was supposed to be working coat check, just hang up jackets, hand out tickets, smile politely, and stay invisible. But her sister had twisted her ankle that morning and begged her to take her place as a VIP hostess for the night. "Just serve drinks and keep your head down," her sister had whispered, gripping her arm. "You don't even have to speak." But someone noticed her. He stood alone near the balcony windows, the city glowing faintly behind him. He was tall, dressed in a tailored charcoal suit with silver cufflinks that caught the light. He held a glass of something dark in one hand, but he didn't sip it. His eyes were fixed on her, calm and unreadable. Lana tried to look away. He kept coming. She stood frozen as he approached. His steps were quiet, smooth, like he had never once in his life needed to hurry. When he reached her, he didn't ask for a drink. He didn't even look surprised. "You're early," he said. She blinked. "I'm sorry?" He tilted his head slightly. "I don't usually request new ones, but your file said you're discreet. You came in through the back entrance. Smart." I think you have the wrong person." He reached into his jacket pocket and handed her a sleek black keycard with a gold emblem. "Penthouse," he said. 30 minutes. Then he walked away. Lana stood there, breath caught in her throat. She looked at the card in her hand. Then she looked after him, heart thudding against her ribs. "What just happened?" She turned, ready to chase him down and demand an explanation. But before she could take a step, security intercepted her. One of the men gestured politely toward a velvet-lined hallway. "VIPs that way, miss." Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. She turned to leave, cheeks burning, but at the exit, a woman in a blazer stopped her. "You're Lana, right?" the woman asked. "Mr. Damien Cross said you'll be reporting to Hartwell Tower at 9 tomorrow. He's expecting his new personal assistant." Lana stared at her, stunned. What kind of man makes a mistake like that, and then turns it into a job? The next morning, Lana stood in front of Hartwell Tower, a coffee in one hand and a knot in her stomach. The building stretched into the clouds, all glass and steel, shining like a monument to people who made the world move without ever touching the ground. She had barely slept. Every time she closed her eyes, that man's voice returned, low and calm, saying things she didn't understand. The card he gave her still sat in her purse, untouched since last night. She had wanted to throw it out, but part of her, the practical, broke part, told her to wait. Maybe it was a joke, maybe it was a test, maybe she was dreaming. But at 9 on the dot, when she gave her name at the front desk, the receptionist nodded like it was the most ordinary thing in the world. "Mr. Cross is expecting you," she said. "Top floor. Take the private elevator." So Lana rode the elevator alone. Glass walls, showing her the entire city as she rose higher than she'd ever been before. She stepped out into silence, deep carpets, and clean lines. Every corner of the office looked untouched, polished, controlled. Then she saw him. Damien Cross stood by the window, back turned, phone in one hand. His posture was perfect, motionless except for the way his fingers tapped the side of his thigh. She recognized the same suit from last night, though now he wore a tie, and not a single hair on his head was out of place. He ended the call, turned slowly, and met her eyes. "You came." "I wasn't sure I should," she replied, holding her coffee like a shield. "Most wouldn't," he said. "But that's what I needed to know." He gestured toward a small conference table. She didn't move. "You think I'm someone I'm not," she said, voice steady despite the heat in her chest. "I thought that," he answered, walking toward her. "And now I don't." "You hired me by mistake." "No," he said, I hired you because you didn't fall apart when you were mistaken." She didn't know what to say to that. He picked up a folder from the table and handed it to her. "Standard contract, personal assistant. You'll be responsible for my calendar, meetings, internal communication, and certain off-hour obligations. Salary is competitive. Hours are unpredictable. Privacy is expected." She opened the folder. The salary made her breath hitch. It was more than she had made in 5 years working 3 jobs, but still she looked up. "Why me?" He didn't blink. "Because every person in this building is either trying to impress me or avoid me. You don't care about either. I don't know you." "Exactly." That was how it began. By the end of the day, Lana had a badge, an office adjacent to his, and a schedule that made her question every life choice that led her here. The hours were brutal. The expectations were worse. Damien didn't raise his voice, didn't repeat himself, and never waited. If she didn't move fast enough, he moved past her. If she asked too many questions, he looked at her like she was a puzzle with missing pieces. But what surprised her most wasn't how cold he was. It was how quiet he was. He didn't make small talk. He didn't show off. He didn't flirt. He watched. He read everything and remembered it all. He corrected numbers in his head. He once looked at a draft of a press release, paused, and said, "Rewrite paragraph 3. It sounds like desperation trying to wear confidence." And she did. And he nodded once, and that was enough. The others at the office didn't speak to her directly. They watched, whispered, and smiled tight, professional smiles when she walked past. Someone once left a note on her desk unsigned that said, "Don't get too comfortable. He replaces assistants like coffee filters." She didn't show it to him. She didn't need to. She just worked. Every night she took the subway back to her tiny apartment and collapsed on the couch, legs sore, brain fried. Her younger sister Mia would offer reheated leftovers and ask, "So, are you quitting yet?" Lana always gave the same answer. "Not yet." Because for all the pressure, for all the mystery, there was something about Damien Cross that made her stay. Maybe it was the way he looked at the world like he had seen too much of it and didn't trust any of it. Maybe it was the way he held silence like a shield. Or maybe, deep down, she wanted to understand the kind of man who mistook a stranger for something else, and then gave her a place beside him anyway. Whatever it was, Lana knew one thing. She wasn't here to play his game, but she had already stepped onto the board. The first week passed in a blur of calendar invites, boardroom echoes, and unfamiliar terminology. Lana adapted quickly. She had to. Damien didn't repeat instructions, and she learned that silence, with him, was more than absence, it was expectation. By the second week, she could anticipate his moods before he spoke. A certain pause in his step meant he had spotted a flaw in a document. A flick of his wrist while holding a pen meant he wanted her to interrupt a call. Still, he didn't offer praise. The only sign of approval was the fact that he hadn't let her go. She told herself it didn't bother her. But it did. Then came the gala. She hadn't expected to be involved. Big events were normally handled by the external team, but 2 hours before it began, Damien walked into her office with a simple line. "You're coming with me." Lana blinked. "Excuse me?" "You'll manage on-site coordination. My previous assistant used to." She stood up slowly. "Mr. Cross, I've never—" "You'll be fine," he said, already turning away. She opened her mouth to protest, but stopped herself. He didn't deal in questions. He dealt in outcomes. That night she wore a plain black dress, nothing like the one from the Meridian event. Her hair was pulled back, neat but forgettable. She stood behind Damien most of the evening, clipboard in hand, nodding at staff, whispering reminders into his ear as the guest list unfolded. People noticed her. They always did when she stood next to him. The difference was tonight, they weren't whispering behind her back. They were whispering in front of her face. "Isn't she the one from that rooftop lounge?" I heard she just appeared one night and now runs his entire schedule. How do you think she got the job? Lana kept her face still. She had learned to master neutrality, but something shifted inside her, a sharp, quiet crack that spread beneath her skin. By the end of the evening, Damien was locked in conversation with two potential investors. Lana stood a few feet behind, managing logistics, when she caught sight of someone approaching from the side. Tall, blonde, confident it was Evelyn Vale, Damien's ex-fiancée. Lana had seen her in magazines. PR queen, reputation cleaner for the rich, and the only woman Damien had ever been seen with publicly for more than 2 months. Evelyn walked straight up to her, holding a glass of champagne like it was a sword. "You must be the new assistant." Lana met her eyes calmly. "I am." "Interesting," Evelyn said, sipping. "You have that disposable look, like someone who won't last the month." Lana didn't flinch. "You'd know about being disposable?" Evelyn's smile froze for just a second. Then she leaned closer. "Be careful, sweetheart. He doesn't keep people. He keeps silence. You'll see." Before Lana could respond, Damien turned. His eyes flicked between them. Evelyn smiled sweetly and walked away without another word. The ride home was quiet. Damien's driver sat up front, separated by soundproof glass. Damien didn't speak. Neither did Lana, but just before they reached her apartment, he said, "You handled her well." Lana looked at him. "Is that what this is? A test?" He didn't answer. She stepped out without another word. The next day, everything changed. An anonymous tip landed in the inbox of a gossip website, a grainy photo from the Meridian Lounge weeks ago, showing Damien handing Lana the black keycard. The headline read, "CEO Damien Cross caught recruiting escorts as staff? A mysterious hire raises eyebrows." The article didn't name her directly, but it didn't have to. The timing, the description, the insinuation, it all pointed to one person. By noon, whispers in the office turned into stares. By 2, someone left a folder on her desk labeled HR Review. And by 5, Damien had summoned her. She walked into his office, holding her breath. He was standing by the window, as always, one hand in his pocket. "You saw the article," he said. "Everyone has." His jaw tightened. "It's not true." "No, but it doesn't matter, does it?" He turned. "It matters to me." Lana crossed her arms. "Funny. You're the one who gave me that card. You're the one who assumed who I was. You started this. I fixed it. You promoted it." That landed. He looked at her, not with anger, but something deeper, something almost like regret. "I thought you were someone else," he said quietly. "And when I realized you weren't, I didn't know how to undo it without making things worse. You could have apologized." He looked down, silent. "Why did you really hire me, Damien?" His eyes met hers again. "Because when I mistook you for someone else, you didn't flinch, you didn't cry, you didn't run, you stood your ground." "That's not a reason." "It is to me." She shook her head. "Well, it's not enough for me." He didn't stop her when she left, but something in his eyes told her she had finally done what no one else ever had. She had shaken Damien Cross. The days that followed were colder than usual, not in weather, but in tone. Damien didn't remove her from her position, didn't transfer her, didn't cut her hours. He simply became quiet in a different way. The silence used to be indifferent. Now it felt like distance wrapped in guilt. Lana still came in on time, still managed his calendar, still typed up memos with precision. But the casual interactions, the occasional flicker of connection between them, those were gone, until the storm hit. It came on a Thursday afternoon. A blackout rolled across half the city, knocking out traffic lights and shutting down entire buildings. Hartwell Tower had backup power, but only the core systems remained online. The elevator stopped, the top floors went dim, and everyone was instructed to vacate except Lana, who stayed behind to help close out a document Damien insisted had to be finished before midnight. "You can go," he told her without looking up. "There's nothing else I need." She didn't move. "Unless you suddenly figured out how to proofread legal language better than my lawyer," he added dryly. Lana stepped forward. "You spelled partnership wrong 3 times. He looked up at her. Their eyes locked. Something flickered between them, challenge, humor, maybe the faint trace of a truce. He handed her the document. "Fine. Show me." They sat across from each other on the large table in his private office, the only light coming from his laptop and the flickering emergency wall strip near the window. Outside, the city was dark. Inside, it felt like another world. At some point, he took off his suit jacket, rolled up his sleeves, and leaned back in his chair. Lana caught herself watching the way his eyes moved when he read, how he tapped his finger once for every paragraph that didn't make sense. "You always do that," she said quietly. "Do what?" "Tap, like a code." He looked at his hand, then at her. "Maybe I like rhythm, noise in control." She nodded, not sure what to say. Then unexpectedly, he asked, "Why did you really stay that night at the Meridian?" Lana's eyes narrowed. "You mean after you handed me a room key like I was some kind of—" "Yes." She leaned back. "Because I was too stunned to walk away, because I didn't know whether to slap you or laugh, and because some part of me wanted to see what kind of man could make a mistake like that and still look so damn confident about it." He didn't smile, but his voice softened. "I wasn't always like that." "Cold? Detached? What changed?" He hesitated, then said, "I trusted someone, once. She sold the trust to someone else. Lesson learned." Lana didn't press. Moments passed. "I read the gossip article again," he said suddenly. "You're brave." "I noticed something. You never denied the story." Lana looked at him amused. "I didn't think I had to." "You don't owe me anything," he said, "but you deserve clarity. So do I." She studied him in the dim light. "Then ask the question you actually want to ask." He did. "Have you ever done that kind of work?" She didn't blink. "No. Not once." "No," she said, voice calm. "But you never really believed I had, did you? You just wanted a reason to test me." He exhaled slowly. "I think I wanted to believe you could survive my world, no matter what it assumed about you." She stood then, picking up her notes. "You don't get to throw people into the fire just to see if they burn." As she turned, he said, "You didn't." She paused. "You're not what I expected, Lana." She turned around slowly. "Neither are you, Damien." That night, when the power returned, she left the building first, but not before he held the elevator door open for her, something he had never done before. The next few weeks shifted. He began to include her in meetings, not just as a note-taker, but as someone to consult. When his communications director quit, he asked Lana to step in temporarily. "You seem to know how to handle a crisis," he said. She handled it well. One evening, after a particularly long day, he offered her a ride home. She declined. He insisted. Inside the car, they sat quietly, the air filled with the scent of leather and late-night exhaustion. He spoke first. "Why do you live in that part of town?" "It's what I can afford." "You could afford better now." "It's not about money," she said. "It's about loyalty. My sister's school is nearby, and I promised her we'd stay until she graduates." He looked at her as if seeing something new. "You don't let people down," he said. She didn't answer. She didn't need to. Another night he found her asleep in the staff lounge, jacket draped over her, files spread across her lap. He didn't wake her. He just watched for a moment, then turned out the light before leaving. Then came the press conference, a major acquisition, media from all over. Lana stood behind the curtain, notes in hand, headset on, organizing every second. Damien stood just behind her, watching her run the show. "You're good at this," he said. She smiled without turning. "Don't sound so surprised." "I'm not," she turned then. "Really?" "I've never been more certain of anything," he said. The words hung between them like silk, soft, unexpected, impossible to ignore. Later that night, after the conference ended and the staff dispersed, Lana found a small box on her desk. Inside was a necklace, simple, elegant, nothing flashy, and a note with 5 words. "For the woman I misjudged." She didn't wear it the next day, but she kept it in her bag, just in case. The morning started like any other. Lana arrived at the office early. She reviewed Damien's schedule, prepared briefing notes for an investor meeting, and coordinated with his travel manager about a sudden change in flight times. Everything ran smoothly, too smoothly. It was always the calmest days that unraveled fastest. At noon, Damien was in a closed-door meeting with board members. Lana waited outside, reading over a legal memo when her phone buzzed. It was a message from Mia, her younger sister. "Are you okay?" "What's happening?" Lana frowned, replied quickly. "What do you mean?" But Mia was already typing again. "Your name's all over the internet. Search your name right now." Lana opened her browser. What she saw made her stomach drop. There, on the homepage of one of the most viewed gossip blogs in the country, was a headline in bold red. "Inside source claims Damien Cross's assistant used her body to get her position." Underneath, a collage of images, some from the Meridian Lounge, some of her walking next to Damien at the gala, and one taken from an unknown angle showing Damien brushing something off her shoulder. The implication was obvious. The article was full of anonymous quotes. She came out of nowhere. No one gets that close to him unless there's something under the table. She's manipulating him. No source was named, no evidence was solid, but none of it mattered. Perception was a monster that didn't wait for facts. Within hours, the article had spread across social media. Lana's inbox flooded with cruel messages. Her name started trending for all the wrong reasons. She sat frozen at her desk, breath shallow. A few employees walked past her more slowly than usual. One whispered, not quietly enough, "Well, guess the rumors were true." That afternoon, Damien canceled his meetings. She knocked on his door. No answer. She knocked again. Nothing. By the end of the day, she was still in the office, not working, just sitting, staring blankly. At 6:45, Damien's door opened. He stepped out, looking as if nothing had happened. His shirt sleeves were rolled up, his expression unreadable. "Lana, in my office." She followed. Inside, he shut the door behind them. She stood. He sat. "You saw it," he said. "Of course I saw it." "Is it true?" he asked. Her breath caught. "Are you really asking me that?" He leaned back, steepling his fingers. "I need to know if there's anything I don't know." "You mean anything you haven't already assumed?" Her voice cracked slightly. "You gave me that job because of a mistake, but I earned everything else. You know I did." Silence. "And if you're asking me this now," she continued, "then maybe I've been wrong this whole time. Maybe you never saw me beyond that first moment." He stared at her. Then slowly, he stood. "You're not wrong," he said softly. "I beg your pardon? I didn't see you clearly, not at first, maybe not even now, but I never doubted your work, and I never believed that story for a second." "Then why ask?" He exhaled. "Because I've built an empire on certainty. I've had to question everyone. It's the only way to stay ahead." "And what if questioning me made you lose me?" she asked. He didn't reply. She stepped back. "Then maybe you deserve to." She walked out. The next morning, she didn't come to work. By noon, she hadn't answered his messages. By nightfall, she was gone. She didn't tell anyone. She packed her bags, left the city, and took Mia with her. A friend in the countryside offered a spare room. No cameras, no pressure, just space to breathe. Meanwhile, the story didn't die down. It grew. Damien released a statement denying every word. He threatened legal action. The blog retracted the article, but the damage was done. Then came the twist. A week later, while combing through his internal systems, Damien's security head discovered the leak. The source wasn't external. It came from inside the company. From Evelyn Vale. She had used a private connection, an old email from her time as PR partner, to send the edited photos to the press. Her motive wasn't money. It was revenge. She had watched Lana take the spot beside Damien she once occupied, and she wanted her gone. When Damien saw the evidence, he said nothing. He simply acted. Within 24 hours, Evelyn's business ties were severed, her name quietly removed from several corporate projects. No lawsuit was filed, no public scandal. But in that world, silence from someone like Damien was destruction enough. Still, the one thing he couldn't fix was the one thing he wanted most to undo. Lana's absence. 10 days passed before he found her. He didn't send anyone. He drove himself. She opened the door to the small rental house, barefoot, wearing a simple sweater and jeans. Her hair was tied back. She looked tired, not weak, just distant, like she had built a wall and learned to live behind it. "How did you find me?" "Checked the name on the car lease. You left it in my system." She stepped aside wordlessly. He entered the house. Mia wasn't there. "You were right," he said. "About Evelyn. About everything. It was her. I have the proof." Lana didn't react. "I released a full internal report. You've been cleared." She looked at him then. "It doesn't clear the silence." He nodded slowly. "I know." They stood in quiet. Finally, he said, "I'm not good at this. I've spent most of my life controlling variables, managing outcomes. I don't know how to lose people or how to keep them for the right reasons." Lana crossed her arms. "I never asked you to keep me." "I know," he said again. "That's why I want you back." "You can't just say that like it's an offer." "It's not," he said. "It's a hope." She studied him. For the first time since they met, he looked unsure. She walked closer, close enough to see the tension in his jaw, the regret in his eyes. "Do you want an assistant?" she asked. "No." "A crisis manager?" "No." "Then what do you want from me, Damien?" He hesitated, then said the one thing she never expected to hear. "Time." Lana didn't answer right away. She looked at Damien, his posture still composed, voice still calm, but something beneath the surface had shifted. He wasn't asking her to return as an employee. He wasn't offering her promotion or a contract or any carefully negotiated deal. He was asking for something raw, something neither of them had ever spoken aloud. A second chance. She walked past him into the small kitchen and poured 2 glasses of water. He followed, quiet. "I needed space," she said softly, placing 1 glass in front of him. "I know. I needed to see who I was outside of your world. And," he asked, "I'm still me. I don't miss the meetings or the deadlines or the way people looked at me in your office. But I do miss one thing." He raised an eyebrow slightly. "What's that?" She looked up. "You, before the silence, before everything became about fixing damage." For the first time, he smiled, just a small curve of his mouth, faint, real. "I wasn't sure you'd say that," he said, "but I hoped." Lana took a sip of water and sat down. "If I come back, it won't be as your assistant." "I wouldn't ask that." "I don't want to stand behind you anymore," she continued. "I want to stand beside you, as an equal." Damien nodded once. "Then that's what we'll build." Not long after, they returned to the city. Quietly. No press release, no statement. Just two people who chose to walk back into the chaos on their own terms. Lana didn't go back to her old desk. Instead, Damien introduced her as the new director of special strategy. A vague title that gave her full autonomy and removed any doubt about her place in the company. People still whispered, but this time she didn't flinch, and Damien didn't stay silent. He was different now, still reserved, still sharp, but more open. He asked her opinion in meetings. He backed her decisions. He laughed, rarely but honestly, when she teased him about his color-coded inbox. And sometimes, when no one was around, he would simply sit in her office, sip coffee, and listen as she spoke about things that had nothing to do with business. Mia noticed it too. "You're lighter," she said one night, watching Lana cook. "Lighter? Like you stopped holding your breath." Maybe she had. The real shift came one late evening, after a long strategy session. The office was quiet, most lights off, the city outside humming through glass walls. Lana stood by the window, arms crossed, staring at the skyline. Damien walked in, loose tie, undone collar, holding two takeaway coffee cups. He handed one to her. She took it, but didn't drink. "You okay?" he asked. She didn't answer right away. Then, "Sometimes I think about the night we met, and I wonder how differently this would have gone if you hadn't mistaken me." Damien stepped closer. "You would have left that night. Probably. You would have never seen me again." Also true. He took a sip. "Then, maybe, I'm grateful for my mistake." She turned to look at him. "You're not afraid I'll use that against you?" He smirked. "You already have, 3 times." She laughed, quiet, surprised. He stepped beside her, close but not touching. They watched the lights flicker in silence for a moment. Then he said, "I still owe you a real apology." "For what?" "For letting silence speak louder than I ever did, for not protecting you when I should have, and for not asking if you were okay before assuming you'd be fine." Lana tilted her head. "You really mean that?" "I do." She looked down at the coffee cup in her hands. "Then I'll accept it, on one condition." "What is it?" "You stop treating every feeling like a negotiation." He smiled again, tired, honest. "That may take time." "I'm not in a rush." Damien turned toward her fully now. "You were the only person who stood still when the rest of the world wanted something from me," he said. "You didn't try to impress me. You didn't flinch when I misunderstood you. You simply existed, and that terrified me." "Why?" "Because I've spent years building walls, and somehow you got in without asking permission." She looked up at him. "I wasn't trying to," she whispered. "I know." Silence hung between them, but this time it wasn't distance. It was peace. He reached out then, slowly, giving her time to pull away. She didn't. His hand brushed against hers, then held it. Warm, steady, like neither of them had anywhere else to be. 6 months later, the company launched its most ambitious campaign yet, a multi-city collaboration with international partners, something that would have taken a year under any other leadership. Lana stood at the edge of the stage during the final presentation, headset on, clipboard in hand, eyes scanning every detail with precision. She wasn't invisible anymore. She didn't stand behind anyone. People didn't whisper now. They listened. When the event ended, she stepped down from the side stairs, planning to slip away before the attention turned toward her. But Damien was already waiting. He held out a glass of water, a quiet smile tugging at his lips. "You missed your spotlight," he said. "I wasn't looking for one," she replied. He tilted his head. "You deserved it anyway." She glanced around. "Where's your usual security detail?" "I left them," he said. "Tonight, I wanted to walk alone." She raised an eyebrow. "That doesn't sound like you." "I'm working on being someone new." Lana paused. "Do I know this new version?" Damien stepped closer, his voice low. I think you're the reason he exists." They stood there, surrounded by laughter and soft music, but it all faded until there was only them. "I used to believe control was everything," he said quietly, "but then you came into my life like a mistake I couldn't manage. And somehow, you became the one thing I never wanted to lose." She smiled, eyes soft. "I used to think power looked like glass towers and expensive suits, but now I know it looks like showing up for someone, even when they don't ask you to." He reached into his jacket pocket, pulled out something small, a necklace, the same one he had given her long ago, now with a delicate star charm added to the chain. She touched it gently. "Why the star?" "Because you never needed my world to shine. You brought your own light." Lana took a slow breath, then reached for his hand, and they walked away together, not toward a perfect ending, but toward something real. A place where trust was earned, where mistakes were forgiven, and where love, finally, didn't need to be hidden behind silence. Some stories begin with a mistake, but the best ones are the ones we choose to stay in long after the damage is done.